Wow! What's that, termite? No, you... Listen, get away from me! I want to come! Get away from me, you big louse! Get away from me! Wait till that fire!
Old Hollywood had its fair share of talented stars, but some of them were known just as much for their harsh behavior as for their acting. These Golden Age divas didn't just speak their minds. They insulted co-stars, clashed with directors, and often made life difficult for everyone around them. Whether it was cold treatment on set, controlling behavior, or outright cruelty, these women built reputations that were anything but kind. Here are 20 Golden Age divas who took cruelty to a whole new level and didn't hold back. Bette Davis. Bette Davis, one of Hollywood's most celebrated actresses, was also notorious for her on-set feuds and biting remarks. She openly clashed with co-stars and crew, notably sparring with Joan Crawford. At the 1963 Oscars, Davis seethed when Crawford upstaged her acceptance moment, later recalling, "I almost dropped dead. Her behavior was despicable." On Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. In 1962, Davis demanded guarantees that director Robert Aldrich wouldn't favor Crawford. Behind the scenes, Davis staged petty revenge after learning Crawford sat on Pepsi's board by having Coca-Cola machines secretly installed on the Baby Jane set to needle her rival. On screen, their rivalry turned physical as Davis kicked Crawford so hard during a fight scene that she reportedly needed stitches, while Crawford retaliated by filling her costume with stones or weights, so Davis struggled to drag her. Davis remained vinegar-tongued and traded sharp barbs in set and off. After Crawford's death, Davis reportedly quipped, "You should never say bad things about the dead. If Joan Crawford is dead, good." Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford ruled her world with quiet but cutting power. As both a sharp businesswoman and a board member at Pepsi, she used her position to get even with anyone she saw as a rival. On the set of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, she filled the place with Pepsi machines just to provoke Bette Davis. Davis responded by sneaking in Coke machines, turning the set into Azalent war. Crawford knew how to use her Hollywood influence to stay in control. When Anne Bancroft could not attend the 1963 Oscars, Crawford stepped in to accept the award. Though she had lobbied for Bancroft, many saw it as a move to steal the spotlight from Davis and others. She quietly pushed out co-stars who upset her. At public events, she left Davis to face reporters alone. Off-screen, she demanded total loyalty, especially from women she saw as competition. Crawford's style of cruelty was never loud. Instead, she used business power, social pressure, and carefully planned moves to punish people. Talula Bankhead. Talula Bankhead was just as wild off-screen as she was in her roles. She was known for heavy drinking, bold behavior, and outrageous pranks. While filming Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat in 1944, she refused to wear underwear and would climb ladders in front of the crew to deliberately shock them. Her temper often caused problems on set. In one scene, she suddenly yelled, "I hate you," at her co-star Walter Slezak. During another incident, she got drunk and reportedly slapped and punched a police officer, creating one of the biggest scandals of the time. Talula also reacted strongly to anyone who made fun of her. When an extra wrote a rude rhyme about her, she stormed onto the stage and demanded a public apology. Director John Cromwell once said that anyone who had met Talula could never claim they were unaware of her explosive personality. Olivia de Havland. Olivia de Havland had a prime public image, but privately she was fiercely competitive, especially with her sister, Joan Fontaine. As children, their rivalry was bitter. Olivia once wrote in a school composition, "I bequeath all my beauty to my younger sister Joan, since she has known." The feud continued into Hollywood. Fontaine later complained she remembered not one act of kindness from Olivia, though neither sister turned this into an on-set brawl. Gloria Swanson. Gloria Swanson was a silent film star known for her beauty, but also for her difficult behavior behind the scenes. One well-known story centers around her feud with Polish actress Pola Negri. Swanson reportedly released cats onto Negri's studio set just to upset her, knowing she was deeply superstitious. Their dislike for each other grew so strong that studio head Adolf Zucker eventually moved Swanson's next project to a different location to avoid further conflict. Swanson often demanded special treatment. While filming The Ten Commandments in 1923, she insisted on having her own private dressing area and regularly pushed for more screen time. She was proud of her status and made that clear to the press. Swanson told reporters that she was one of the few people in Hollywood who could stand up to powerful men. When her husband and co-star Cecil B. DeMille disagreed with her, she casually remarked that if Charlie Chaplin did not want to kiss her, it was his loss. She called herself the top female star of the movie world and treated many around her, even studio heads, like personal assistants. Her behavior made a lasting impression, leaving people around her feeling both amazed and overwhelmed by her strong personality. Maria Callas. Maria Callas' temper was infamous, and she expected absolute perfection from everyone around her. When things fell short, her reactions were extreme. During a rehearsal at La Scala in 1956, a stagey hand reportedly called her a fat witch. In response, Callas bit his arm with such force that it drew blood. The exact details are debated, but the story has followed her for decades. Her outbursts were not rare. She would slam doors, hurl props, and once shattered a wooden door panel during a shouting fit. She kept her distance from the press and refused to engage with understudies, determined to protect her image at all costs. Musicians who auditioned in front of her often faced harsh treatment. She was known to stop rehearsals mid-song if something displeased her, leaving performers embarrassed and sometimes in tears. Co-stars described the atmosphere around her as suffocating, with many blaming their bad luck on what they called the Callas curse. Callas ruled her stage with fear and fury, making even the most talented professionals feel small under her watchful eye. Vivien Lee. Vivien Lee was praised for her performances in Gone with the Wind and A Streetcar Named Desire, but working with her was often described as exhausting. She earned a reputation for being difficult, especially under pressure. During the filming of Gone with the Wind, she refused to continue working in the Georgia heat. Instead of cooperating, she made sarcastic remarks about her health and demanded costume changes before nearly every take, stalling the entire crew. Her unpredictable behavior disrupted filming more than once. She would stay in bed without warning, leaving the team to adjust the schedule around her. When frustrated, she cursed loudly at equipment and snapped, demanding scenes be restarted without any notice. People who worked with her said she was hard to predict. One moment she would burst into tears on cue, and the next, she would glare at someone for no clear reason. While she was not openly cruel, her constant mood swings and refusal to compromise created a tense and uncomfortable environment. Vivien Lee expected perfection on her terms. When things didn't go the way she wanted, everyone around her felt the pressure of her sharp words and shifting emotions. Joan Fontaine. Oscar-winning Joan Fontaine's notoriety also comes from her saga with Olivia de Havland. Fontaine openly lamented that Olivia had never shown one act of kindness in their lives, fueling decades of rumored animosity. At Hollywood functions, they reportedly avoided each other. For instance, Fontaine refused to acknowledge Olivia at the 1942 Oscars, focusing on her win for Rebecca. Reportedly, Fontaine even avoided Madame Tussauds wax displays of Olivia. Her own on-set behavior, however, was relatively reserved. She performed all her scenes professionally, but was known to stare icily at Olivia or insist on shooting moments away from her sister. Biographers note Fontaine quietly maneuvered to ensure she wasn't upstaged, for instance, arranging publicity schedules. Fontaine's cold politeness sometimes slid into passive aggression. Her interviews could be cutting if Olivia's name came up. Dolores Gray. Dolores Gray was one of Broadway's biggest stars in the 1950s, but her name became just as famous for backstage drama as it did for her performances. During the 1951 revue, Two on the Aisle, she starred alongside comedian Bert Lahr. The two were locked in a constant battle for the spotlight. According to theater insiders, Gray did everything she could to keep Lahr from outshining her. Many say she ended up stealing the entire show. Crew members recalled that she often added extra vocal flourishes during songs to grab more attention. At curtain calls, she refused to let Lahr take his beau before her. Offstage, Gray demanded constant publicity and clashed with producers if she felt her name was not being promoted enough. She once refused to rehearse a scene unless there was an audience watching, which caused delays for the entire production. She insisted on extravagant costumes and was praised as Much's the official lead. When speaking to understudies, she warned that copying her style would only lead to embarrassment. Dolores Gray made it clear that the spotlight belonged to her alone. Moren OHara. During the filming of The Quiet Man in 1952, Moren OHara lost her patience with co-star John Wayne. In a saloon fight scene, he added an unscripted line that angered her. She shouted, "If I ever hear that again, you're walking home," and tried to hit him. She missed and broke her wrist, but instead of backing down, she got stitches and kept filming while in pain. Her anger was not limited to co-stars. When director John Ford kept pushing her through endless retakes, she snapped and yelled, "Try it yourself," ending the scene on her terms. Crew members often saw her sharp attitude firsthand. At one rehearsal, she scolded a costume assistant by asking, "Do I have to hold this up myself?" Even John Wayne later admitted that her temper scared him. On set, she never held back. If she felt someone was being lazy, unprofessional, or disrespectful, she spoke up loudly and without hesitation. Her outbursts were sudden and intense, leaving those around her on edge. Ethel Merman. Ethel Merman cursed openly during rehearsals and snapped at reporters without holding back. At a TV rehearsal for the Loretta Young show, her foul language was so extreme that Loretta Young called her out in front of everyone. Merman's sense of humor was sharp and often crossed the line. One story claims she once cornered a group of critics at a dinner and scolded them to their faces. She demanded total control and could turn violent when angry. One tale describes her throwing a chair at a dresser who arrived late. Another says she flipped chairs around during a scene just to show her irritation. Merman made sure she stayed in the spotlight. A fellow performer once said, she shoved a dance partner aside just to steal the attention. In her autobiography, she proudly wrote about cursing like a sailor and showing up uninvited to scare staff into action. Her outbursts and demands shaped her legacy as a woman who ruled the stage with volume, rage, and not a hint of regret. Elizabeth Taylor. When she became famous, Elizabeth Taylor expected royal treatment and could throw famous tantrums. At a 1965 dinner party with Princess Margaret, Taylor and fiancé Richard Burton learned they weren't seated at the head table. Insulted, they immediately stormed out, leaving the party. Taylor was also legendary for controlling her film productions. On Cleopatra 1963, she demanded endless script rewrites and a fleet of hairdressers to maintain her appearance. Crew stories tell of her calling wardrobe meetings at 2 a.m. and firing people on the spot. If costumes weren't perfect, privately she insulted the staff. "What do you know about Egypt?" and withheld smiles when displeased. Her biographers note that studios coddled her because of her star power, but Taylor still created havoc, from refusing scene schedules to lecturing directors on lighting. In sum, Taylor's diva reputation rests on accounts of on-set demands and stormy socialite behavior, making her a 1960s heir to earlier Hollywood tyrants. Lupe Veles. Mexican actress Lupe Veles had an explosive temper, especially in love triangles. Most famously, after discovering co-star Gary Cooper was sleeping with Marlene Dietrich, Veles shazzed him with a knife, stabbing him in the arm and requiring stitches. Production locals confirmed she turned crazy jealous. She was nicknamed Bubbles on set for the pain she inflicted with that knife, as Cooper joked. Veles also loudly fought with studio executives over roles, once refusing to film until her lead was guaranteed. Colleagues recall her alternating between giggling and raging in seconds. She might laugh and slap you in the same scene. Sadly, much of Veles' legacy was her real-life heartbreak, leading to her tragic death. But surviving accounts ensure her reputation as a hothead, who literally brought a weapon to a film set, remains part of Golden Age lore. Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid Bergman's most talked about scandal had nothing to do with how she treated her co-workers. It was about how far she was willing to go to follow her own desires. In 1950, she began a highly public affair with director Roberto Rossellini while still married, shocking audiences and drawing outrage. A U.S. senator even publicly condemned her. As a result, she spent the next 5 years cut off from Hollywood, working in Europe while her image at home fell apart. Though no stories exist of her yelling at co-stars or creating chaos on set, her actions off-screen left lasting damage. Her affair sparked a moral panic that disrupted her career, tarnished her aunt's wholesome image, and pulled others into the scandal. While directors and co-stars described her as professional, her choices showed a strong disregard for how her behavior affected those around her. She returned to Hollywood quietly in 1956 and won an Oscar for Anastasia, but the damage to her reputation lingered. Unlike other stars whose tantrums were caught on set, Bergman's brand-off diva came through personal defiance, where her pursuit of love and fame left others to deal with the fallout. Faye Dunaway. Faye Dunaway is remembered in Hollywood for her difficult behavior behind the scenes. Her reputation as a temperamental and demanding actress grew over the years, with many co-stars and crew members describing her as unpredictable and harsh. On the set of Mommy Dearest, 1981, Dunaway's portrayal of Joan Crawford became infamous, not just on screen, but off it too. Crew members later claimed she physically struck other actors during scenes and made the working environment tense. One assistant accused her of repeated verbal abuse and filed a lawsuit alleging Dunaway screamed, refused to be touched, and threw objects during fits of rage. Even decades later, stories of her behavior continue to circulate in industry circles. Bette Davis once bluntly stated, "She is without doubt the most impossible actress I have ever worked with." Directors have echoed similar complaints, describing her as emotionally volatile and difficult to manage. Some producers even chose not to work with her again, despite her obvious talent. Dunaway has rarely acknowledged these accusations in full, though she has mentioned that her commitment to perfection may have been misunderstood. Still, many industry insiders believe that her extreme mood swings and inability to collaborate with colleagues severely damaged her career in later years. Shannon Doherty. Shannon Doherty rose to fame in the 1990s with her breakout roles in Beverly Hills, 902, 10, and Charmed, but her reputation as a difficult and temperamental actress often overshadowed her work. While fans admired her screen presence, producers and co-stars regularly clashed with her behind the scenes. On Beverly Hills, 90210, Doherty's off-camera behavior became a growing concern. She was known for showing up late, arguing with cast members, and walking off set without warning. Eventually, tensions with fellow star Jenny Garth escalated so much that producers decided to write Doherty off the show altogether. Though never publicly confirmed in full, many insiders agreed that her dismissal was due to her disruptive behavior. A few years later, history repeated itself on the set of Charmed. Doherty again reportedly clashed with co-star Alyssa Milano. Crew members described the set as tense, and sources revealed the two actresses were barely on speaking terms. Once again, Doherty's contract was not renewed, and she was written out of the show in its third season. Despite these issues, Doherty has also had defenders. Some colleagues have noted that she was under immense pressure from a young age, and that her strong personality was often misunderstood. Over the years, she has acknowledged her past and expressed regret for some of her behavior. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner's conflicts were directed inward, or at the men who underestimated her, not at her fellow actors or film crews. Known for her deep, sultry voice and smoldering presence, Gardner was also refreshingly no-nonsense. She didn't mince words, but that didn't mean she was difficult. Her tempestuous romances with stars like Frank Sinatra and Artie Shaw made headlines. But her behavior on set was generally described as disciplined and cooperative. She knew the value of her stardom, but never weaponized it to bully directors or demand special treatment. If she ever pushed back, it was usually with reason. One oft-repeated anecdote claims she once told a high-handed director to go to hell. But this tale remains unverified, and even if true, it seems more like boundary setting than bratty behavior. Gardner was well aware of her vulnerabilities in the studio system. She frequently clashed with Columbia and MGM over rigid contracts, and even endured suspension for asserting herself. Far from being pampered, she was penalized for asserting agency. Yet, she didn't carry this resentment onto the set. Co-stars like Gregory Peck and Clark Gable described her as warm, funny, and deeply professional. She hated pretension and had little patience for fakeness, qualities that could be misread as attitude in an industry built on illusion. Even biographers note that Gardner's diva image comes more from her headline-making, romances, and smoldering glamour than from any history of on-set tyranny. If anything, her struggle was against a system that demanded perfection but offered little support. Frances Farmer. Initially praised for her raw performances in films like Come and Get It, Frances Farmer was a rising star. But unlike other actresses of the era, she refused to play the obedient studio, darling. That refusal, combined with intense mood swings and public outbursts, eventually led to an infamy that rivaled her fame. Farmer clashed bitterly with studio executives over roles, pay, and the public image they tried to craft for her. She dismissed the Hollywood machine as cheap and ridiculous, and reportedly called it a madhouse. Her unpredictability alarmed many. During a court hearing for drunk driving in 1943, she physically attacked officers, screamed at the judge, and had to be forcibly restrained, an episode widely reported in the press. On set, she would disappear for hours, lash out at wardrobe assistants, and argue openly with directors, insisting on creative autonomy. Her volatility became legendary. After multiple arrests and psychiatric evaluations, Farmer was declared mentally unfit and institutionalized for nearly a decade, while her posthumous myth has often been distorted by tabloid exaggerations. Contemporary records show that Farmer's anger and cruelty were real and alarming to those around her. Though some accounts paint her as a victim of Hollywood's cruelty, and to a degree she was, her aggressive behavior contributed significantly to her professional downfall. Veronica Lake. Behind the camera, Veronica Lake developed a reputation for being extremely difficult to deal with. Described by multiple colleagues as cold, aloof, and even spiteful, her off-screen demeanor quickly alienated those she worked with and helped derail a career that had once seemed unstoppable. Her behavior on Sullivan's travels in 1941 shocked director Preston Sturges, particularly when she failed to disclose that she was 6 months pregnant. The physical demands of the role required dangerous stunts, and Sturges was reportedly livid to learn she had hidden the pregnancy from the crew, forcing a sudden rewrite of shooting plans. Tensions with co-star Joel McCrea also ran high. The two loathed each other so much that McCrea famously turned down I Married a Witch because he refused to endure another shoot with Lake. His dry summary: life's too short for 2 films with Veronica Lake. Actor Eddie Bracken didn't mince words either, stating flatly, she was known as the bitch and she deserved the title. Other co-stars, including Frederick March, found her to be emotionally distant and unpredictable. She allegedly struggled with insecurity and alcohol dependency, which deepened her isolation. Gossip columnist Hedda Hopper noted that Lake seemed actively intent on ruining morale at a War Bonds event in Boston, describing her as grim and visibly contemptuous of the audience and fellow stars. Lake's Hollywood persona, icy, remote, untouchable, wasn't just an act. Her beauty made her a star, but her temperament made her a liability. As one studio insider quipped, "You never knew which Veronica you were going to get." That unpredictability ultimately cost her the goodwill of the industry and a legacy that might have been far more enduring. Margaret Sullivan. Margaret Sullivan was brilliant on screen and known off-screen for being intense and unyielding. One well-known story recalls how, during a 4th of July party, she poured a pitcher of ice water over Henry Fonda's head after a disagreement about fireworks money, then calmly sat back down to finish her meal. That mix of elegance and defiance became part of her legend. Studio head Louis B. Mayer was said to be intimidated by her, which was rare for someone who held so much power in Hollywood. Sullivan once threatened to walk away from a film unless a blacklisted writer was given proper credit, and she got her way. During a heated argument with director Sam Wood, emotions ran high. Wood suffered a heart attack shortly afterward. Although the timing caused some to speculate, there is no clear evidence linking the argument to his health crisis. Sullivan was a force of nature who stood her ground with anyone. Her intense personality made her both admired and feared by many who worked with her. Thanks for watching. If these fierce, fabulous, and fiery divas shocked or fascinated you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more Hollywood throwbacks. Got a favorite old school diva moment or wild rumor we missed? Tell us in the comments. Until next time, keep the drama vintage and the gossip golden.